After 7 years of taking care of my grandchildren every single day, my daughter-in-law looked me in the eyes and said, "Starting tomorrow, the kids won't be coming here anymore. They need better influences." So I stopped helping. 1 week later, she was desperate because she had lost custody of the children, and they came to live with me permanently. This is a true story, and you need to know why. My name is Elena Rodriguez. I'm 58 years old, and what you're going to hear today changed my life forever. Because sometimes the people who try to push us out of their lives end up giving us exactly what we always wanted. But to understand how one cruel sentence gave me the greatest gift of my life, I need to tell you everything from the beginning. Because this story isn't just about a rejected grandmother. It's about justice, about truth, and about how a mother's negligence revealed secrets no one could have imagined. To understand what happened on that fateful Tuesday, you need to know my routine. For 7 years since Tommy was born, my life revolved completely around those 2 children. Every single day, without exception, I woke up at 6 a.m. I prepared breakfast, pancakes for Tommy, who's a picky eater, and toast with jelly for Sarah, who was always more practical. At 7:30 a.m., I was at their door to take the children to school. Jessica, my daughter-in-law, always said she had important morning meetings and couldn't do it. At 3:30 p.m., I was in line at Riverside Elementary School, waiting for my babies to come out. Tommy, at 8 years old, would walk out looking for me with that sweet smile. Sarah, older and already thinking she was independent at 11, walked with more dignity, but the smile on her face when she saw me was the most beautiful thing in the world. From 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., they stayed at my house. Snacks, homework, playing in the backyard. I helped Tommy with math. He had trouble with subtraction. I helped Sarah with science projects, which she loved. She wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up. At 7 p.m., I took them back home, where Jessica and my son David were arriving from work. I always left dinner ready in the fridge, lasagna, roasted chicken, something I knew the children would eat without complaining. This was my life. 7 years, 2,555 days of total dedication. I didn't receive a penny for it, and I never asked. Those children were my joy, my purpose, my reason for living since my husband died 10 years ago. Jessica was always complicated. From the first day my son David brought her home, I felt there was something different about her. She was beautiful, intelligent, ambitious, but there was a coldness, a calculation in everything she did. When Tommy was born, I thought motherhood would change Jessica. And it did, but not the way I expected. She seemed to see the child as an inconvenience, something that interfered with her career plans. That's when I started helping more, being more present. But I didn't mind. I loved those children more than my own life, and I thought Jessica appreciated my help. After all, I was allowing her to maintain her career, her social life, her freedom. How wrong I was. On that fateful Tuesday, I was returning Tommy's soccer uniform that I had washed. Normal thing, usual routine. But when Jessica opened the door, something was different. First, the perfume. A masculine cologne that I didn't recognize, and that definitely wasn't my son David's. Second, 2 coffee cups on the kitchen table, and David wouldn't get home from work until 8 p.m. And third, Jessica was nervous, restless in a way I had never seen. She told me she wanted to talk to me. And then she looked me directly in the eyes with a coldness that chilled my soul and said those words that would change everything. Starting tomorrow, the kids won't be coming to your house anymore. They need better influences. People. I felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart. 7 years. 7 years of my life dedicated to those children, and she was dismissing me like I was nothing. I tried to understand, asked what I had done wrong. She responded with a cold and calculating voice that it wasn't about doing something wrong, but about what was best for Tommy and Sarah, that they needed to learn independence, responsibility, that they couldn't keep depending on Grandma for everything. Depending on Grandma? I was the one taking care of them. I was the one who was there when they were sick, when they had nightmares, when they needed help with math. I was the one who knew each one's favorite food, who knew that Tommy was afraid of the dark and Sarah loved stories about brave princesses. When I tried to argue, she interrupted me saying that the decision had already been made and that David agreed with her. That was the lie that hurt the most. Because I knew my son, and he would never agree to keep me away from the grandchildren without talking to me first. But at that moment, with a broken heart and a confused mind, I didn't question it. As I walked to my car that night, I made a decision that would change everything. If I wasn't a good influence, then I simply wouldn't be there. If Jessica wanted me out of the children's lives, then she would have to figure out how to take care of them alone. What Jessica didn't know was that I had been documenting something for months, something that would soon become the key to everything. I spent the entire night awake, going over every moment of the last 7 years. Was I really a bad influence? The doubt was eating me up inside. But then I remembered my notebook. For 7 years, I had written down everything, every school pickup, every meal, every important conversation. It was my way of tracking their growth. And it was while flipping through those pages that I began to see a pattern that had started exactly 4 months ago. Something I had ignored because I didn't want to believe it. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Always Tuesdays and Thursdays. Jessica asked me to pick up the children later on those days. She said she had dentist appointments or important work meetings. But when I checked my location app, oh yes, the app. I had installed it on the children's phones for safety, to always know where they were. And what I discovered left me speechless. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the last 4 months, Jessica took the children to the same place. An address I didn't recognize. And they stayed there for hours. The next morning, at 7:30 a.m., the school called me. The secretary said that Tommy and Sarah seemed upset and kept asking when they were going to Grandma's house. My heart broke. They didn't know yet that they were banned from Grandma's house. They were still waiting for me. But it was when I remembered the masculine cologne at Jessica's house that everything started to make sense. I needed to know who that man was. The following Thursday, I did something I never thought I would do. I waited outside Jessica's house. At 2:30 p.m., she came out, not alone. The man who came out with her was Marcus Thompson, my son David's personal trainer, my son's best friend. They got in her car, laughed, kissed, and then they headed to a motel on Highway 95, the Sunset Inn. It was 2:45 p.m. when they entered room 237, exactly the time when Jessica should have been picking up Tommy and Sarah from school. And that's when everything clicked. She wasn't just using me as a free babysitter. She was using me as an alibi for her affair. 15 minutes later, my phone rang. It was the school. The children were there waiting. Their mother hadn't shown up. With a broken heart, but determined to discover the truth, I went to pick them up. And speaking of discovering the truth, if you're enjoying this story and want to know how it ends, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Stories like this need to be told, and you help me a lot when you subscribe. Now let me continue telling you what I discovered. When I arrived at school and saw my grandchildren waiting, confused and worried, I knew this was much bigger than a simple marital affair. Tommy asked me, with that little 8-year-old voice, why Mommy hadn't come and why I hadn't gone to their house the day before. Sarah, always smarter, said that Mommy had said I was busy, but that I was never too busy for them. That night, when I took the children home, I found something in Tommy's backpack that made my blood run cold. It was a note written in Sarah's childish handwriting. It said that Mommy's friend came to the house when Daddy wasn't there, that they didn't like him because he was rude and spoke loudly to Mommy, and that Tommy was scared. My babies knew about Marcus. They were carrying this secret alone, and I wasn't there to protect them. I started remembering little things I had ignored. Tommy wetting the bed again after years. Sarah becoming quieter, more withdrawn. I thought it was just a phase. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I checked the children's school records online. What I found left me speechless. Absences, many absences, all on Tuesdays and Thursdays. In the last 4 months, Tommy and Sarah had missed 32 days of school, and I didn't know about any of them. I called the school pretending to be Jessica. The secretary told me that all absences were justified as family medical appointments, and that Jessica always called to notify them. Jessica was lying to the school. But if the children weren't at school, where were they during her meetings with Marcus? I called my neighbor Dolores, who lives across from Jessica's house. What she told me made any grandmother's nightmare seem like a fairy tale. Dolores told me that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she saw Jessica leave with that tall man, and the children stayed alone. For hours, that she always wanted to call me, but didn't want to interfere. 8 and 11 years old. My grandchildren were being abandoned alone at home for 3 to 4 hours while their mother was at a motel with her lover. It was at that moment that I realized Jessica didn't just want to get me out of the picture. She needed me gone for something much darker. After discovering about Marcus and seeing my grandchildren being abandoned, I knew I needed professional evidence. Not just photos I had taken, but legal documentation that would hold up in court. So I did something I never thought I would do. I hired a private investigator. The report he brought me a week later was devastating. Jessica and Marcus were planning to move together, to Arizona, and they wanted to take the children. The investigator showed me recorded conversations, emails, even apartments they had visited in Phoenix. Jessica was planning to kidnap my grandchildren, but the part that shocked me most was discovering her strategy. Jessica had consulted 3 different lawyers about how to get a change of jurisdiction. She was looking for ways to prevent David from having access to the children. And her strategy? She was going to accuse me of inappropriate interference and toxic influence to justify the move to another state. She was going to use my love for my grandchildren against me. She was going to say I was obsessive, controlling, that I was harming their development. I consulted a lawyer who told me I had rights as a caregiver grandmother. 7 years of documented care was very significant, but we needed to act fast. That's when I made the most difficult decision of my life. I wasn't going to confront Jessica yet. I was going to let her hang herself. My plan was simple. Jessica had told me I was no longer needed. Perfect. I was going to prove exactly how necessary I was. I was going to document every failure, every negligence, every moment she put my grandchildren at risk. Jessica had made a crucial mistake. She had forgotten that for 7 years, I was the only person who knew everything about those children. And what she was about to discover would cost her everything. While Jessica thought she was getting rid of the only obstacle to her plan, she was actually removing the only thing preventing her world from falling apart. The first week without me was revealing. I positioned myself strategically. Breakfast at the diner across from the school. Shopping at the supermarket near Jessica's house. I wasn't spying. I was observing. Day 1, Wednesday. Jessica arrived 20 minutes late to pick up the children. I saw through the cafe window. Tommy was crying, Sarah trying to console him. Day 2, Thursday. Jessica completely forgot the parent-teacher conference at school. The principal called me asking if I knew where she was. I knew. She was at the Sunset Inn with Marcus. But on the second day without me, something happened that almost made me give up the plan. Tommy called me crying, saying he was scared and that Mommy had yelled at him. My heart broke, but I knew I had to be strong. I needed to document everything. Every day was torture. Seeing my grandchildren confused, seeing Jessica failing and not being able to do anything. But I knew it was necessary. On the 3rd day, David called me, saying that Jessica seemed very stressed lately and asked if I could help with the children. With a broken heart, I replied that he should ask Jessica since she had made a decision. David was confused and asked what decision, what I was talking about. It was at that moment that I realized David didn't know anything. Jessica was playing a much more dangerous game than I imagined. Because if David didn't know that she had fired me, then she was lying to him too. And if she was lying about this, what else was she lying about? On the 4th day, Monday, at 5:30 p.m., what I was expecting and dreading happened. My phone rang. It was the school saying that no one had come to pick up Tommy and Sarah, that it was already 5:30 p.m. and they were there alone. My babies were abandoned and scared. All my strategy went down the drain at that moment. When I arrived at school, I found Tommy crying silently and Sarah trying to be strong, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Tommy told me he didn't know where I was, that they had waited for me. Sarah asked why Mommy had said I couldn't take care of them anymore, what they had done wrong. At that moment, I almost gave up my entire plan. But then I remembered. I needed evidence. I needed to prove that Jessica was negligent, so I did something that broke my heart. I called Jessica in front of the school secretary. On the other side of the line, I heard loud music, male laughter, and Jessica responding irritably that she had lost track of time. She was at the motel with Marcus while my grandchildren were abandoned at school. People, if you're following this story and want to see how justice was served, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with that friend who's also a grandmother and understands the pain of being undervalued. Now I'm going to tell you how everything fell apart. When I took the children home that Monday, the house was a mess. Dirty dishes in the sink for days, empty refrigerator, and in Jessica's room I found something that would change everything. They were messages on her phone, which had been left forgotten on the charger. Messages between Jessica and Marcus that revealed a much more sinister plan than I imagined. The first message said that she had managed to get rid of the meddling mother-in-law, and that now she just had to convince David that the children needed a new start away from there. Marcus asked what would happen if David didn't agree. Jessica replied that then she would accuse Elena of inappropriate behavior with the children, that no judge would give custody to a father who allowed that. She was planning to accuse me of abuse, use my love for my grandchildren as a weapon against me. Another message said that she had already spoken with a lawyer, that if she could prove parental alienation on my part, she could request a change of jurisdiction. And the message that shocked me most said that in 2 weeks they would be free, she, Marcus, and the children in Phoenix, that David could stay there with me, that we deserved each other. 2 weeks. Jessica was planning to run away with my grandchildren in 2 weeks. At 7:15 p.m., David came home and found me with the children in the living room, Jessica's phone in my hand. He asked what I was doing there and where Jessica was. I said he needed to ask that question to his wife. David was confused, asking what was happening, why the children seemed upset, why I was there and Jessica wasn't. It was the moment of truth. I could continue protecting Jessica, or I could protect my son and my grandchildren. I told him to sit down, that I needed to show him some things. I showed him the motel photos first. David was silent for a long time, just looking at my phone screen. He said that was Marcus, his personal trainer, his friend. I said there was more. I told him about the pattern of abandonment, the school absences, the children alone at home. David got paler with each revelation. He realized she had been using me as an alibi for months. Then I showed him the investigator's report, the plans to move to Arizona, the strategy of accusing me to justify kidnapping the children. David exploded, asking if she was going to take his children, if she was going to accuse me of interfering in their marriage. David was silent for 5 minutes. I could see the thoughts going through his face. Anger, betrayal, fear, determination. He asked where she was at that moment. I said she was probably at the Sunset Inn, room 237. David asked me to stay with the children that night, that he needed to resolve some things. I knew that when Jessica came home, she would find a very different husband than the one she had left that morning. At 8:15 p.m., Jessica came through the front door and found David, me, and the children waiting in the living room. The expression on her face when she saw the phone in David's hand was unforgettable. She tried to sound casual, saying it was a surprise to see me there, that she thought I was busy. David responded with an icy voice that she should sit down, that they needed to talk. I could see Jessica calculating, trying to understand what we knew. Her eyes went straight to the phone in David's hand. She asked why David had her phone. He said it was an interesting question and wanted to know where she had been for the last 4 hours. Jessica hesitated, said she was at work, at a meeting that ran long. David asked if the meeting was at the Sunset Inn, room 237. The silence that followed was deadly. Jessica's face changed completely. The mask of the devoted wife fell, and for the first time, I saw who she really was. She said she could explain, but David interrupted her, asking her to explain the messages. And he started reading every message, every plan, every lie. Jessica got paler with each word. Trying to turn the tables, she said that David didn't understand, that I was manipulative and was trying to separate them. I responded calmly that I had photos of her entering the motel, records of the children being abandoned at school, evidence of months of negligence. That's when Jessica exploded, screaming that I had no right, that they were her daughters. David responded coldly that they were both of theirs, and that she was abandoning them to sleep with his best friend. Confronted with irrefutable evidence, Jessica finally confessed, but not with remorse, with anger. She admitted she was with Marcus, that she wanted to get out of there, that David worked all the time, that I interfered in everything, and that she deserved to be happy. David asked about the children, if she was going to kidnap his daughters. Jessica said it wasn't kidnapping when it was their mother, and that they would be better off away from me anyway. It was at that moment that Jessica said something that would seal her fate forever. Looking directly at me, she said that the children would be better off without my interference anyway, that I was a toxic influence and always had been. David exploded, said she was right, that they would be better off, but without her. He said he wanted a divorce and that he was going to fight for full custody. Jessica tried to argue, threaten, even cry. But it was too late. David had seen who she really was. 3 weeks later, we were at the Orange County Family Court. I never imagined I would be there, as the main witness in the battle for custody of my grandchildren. David's lawyer presented all the evidence, photos, messages, school records, neighbors' testimonies. Jessica had no defense. Her lawyer tried to argue that his client was going through a difficult time in the marriage, that the mother-in-law was excessively controlling. But the judge interrupted him, saying that his client had abandoned minor children for extramarital encounters, that this wasn't a difficult time. It was criminal negligence. When they called me to testify, I was nervous. But when I looked at Tommy and Sarah in the gallery, I knew exactly what to say. I said that for 7 years I had cared for those children as if they were my own daughters, that I loved them unconditionally, and that all I ever wanted was to protect them. The judge asked if I would be willing to continue caring for the children if necessary. I replied that it would be an honor. The judge then delivered her decision, saying that Jessica's actions demonstrated a pattern of negligence and putting personal interests above the children's welfare. Therefore, full custody was granted to David. Jessica exploded in court, screaming that it was unfair, that I had manipulated everyone, that I was the problem. The judge said that one more word and she would be removed from the courtroom. But then something happened that I didn't expect. David stood up. He said that he worked long hours as an engineer, that I had been the children's primary caregiver for 7 years, and he would like to request that I be named legal guardian under his supervision. The judge asked if I accepted that responsibility. With a choked voice, I replied, yes. The woman who told me I wasn't part of the family had just made me legally the most important person in the children's lives. People, if this story is touching your hearts, please leave a comment telling your own experiences. How many grandmothers here have ever felt undervalued? Subscribe to the channel for more real stories like this. Now let me tell you how it ended. 6 months after the court decision, my house was full of life again. Tommy and Sarah officially lived with me, and our routine was stronger than ever. The children were flourishing. Tommy stopped wetting the bed. Sarah started smiling again. They were safe, loved, and finally at peace. One day, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. It was Jessica. The first time she had tried to contact me since the trial. Her voice was different, broken, desperate. She asked if she could see the children. I said she had the right to supervised visits on Saturdays, but that she hadn't shown up for the last 8 weeks. She said she knew that she was trying to sort out her life. Marcus had left her. She had lost her job. She was living with her mother. In the months following the trial, Jessica's life had completely fallen apart. Marcus abandoned her as soon as the scandal became public. Her job at the marketing company fired her for inappropriate conduct. She lost the house, the car, everything. Jessica said she knew she had made terrible mistakes, but that they were her daughters and she missed them every day. I said the children asked about her sometimes. She wanted to know what they said. I told her that Tommy asked why Mommy didn't come anymore, and Sarah asked if she still liked them. I could hear Jessica crying on the other side of the line, and for a moment, just a moment, I felt sorry for her. I said she could come on Saturday at 2 p.m. for 2 hours, but that I would be present. Jessica accepted, relieved. On Saturday, Jessica arrived punctually at 2 p.m. She was different, thinner, hair without shine, simple clothes. The arrogant woman I knew had disappeared. The children were polite but distant. 6 months of stability with me had healed many wounds, but had also created a new perspective. Jessica tried to reconnect, said she had brought gifts, and thought they could go to the park, like old times. Sarah said calmly that I always took them to the park, every Sunday after church. Tommy added that I never forgot, not even when it was raining. Jessica tried to talk about the plans she had for them, about how it would be different now. But Sarah, with the wisdom of her 11 years, said something that broke and healed my heart at the same time. She said she was happy living with Grandma, that she felt safe, that she didn't want any more changes. Tommy agreed, saying he liked the routine, that he knew I would always be there. Jessica left that day in tears, and I knew that despite everything, I had done the right thing. Today, 2 years later, Tommy is 10 and Sarah is 13. They are happy, safe, and loved children. David visits whenever he can, and our family, although different from what I imagined, is stronger than ever. Jessica still has her supervised visits, but they are sporadic. The children see her more like a distant aunt than as a mother. It's sad, but it's the consequence of the choices she made. Sometimes I think about that Tuesday, when Jessica told me the children needed better influences. The irony is that she was right. They really did need better influences. It's just that the bad influence was her. Marcus completely disappeared after the scandal. I heard he moved to another state, probably to escape the shame. David eventually forgave the betrayal, but never forgot. He's dating a wonderful woman now, a teacher who loves the children and treats me with the respect I deserve. The house that was once just mine is now full of laughter, homework, the children's friends, and all the wonderful chaos that comes with raising kids. I'm 60 years old now, and I've never felt younger or more useful. You know, this experience taught me something important about family. Family isn't just blood. Family is who shows up. Family is who stays. Family is who puts the children's needs above their own desires. For 7 years, I was the grandmother. Now, I'm officially the substitute mother, the legal guardian, the most important person in these children's lives. And all because a cruel woman tried to remove me from their lives. The sweetest revenge wasn't seeing Jessica lose everything. It was gaining everything I always wanted, my grandchildren with me forever. If you're a grandmother who has ever felt undervalued, remember this: your love is not invisible. Your sacrifice is not forgotten. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe has a way of ensuring that the right people end up exactly where they belong. Tommy and Sarah are mine now, legally, emotionally, completely. And every morning, when I wake up at 6 a.m. to prepare their breakfast, I smile remembering Jessica's words. They need better influences. She was right, and now they have them. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with other grandmothers who need to hear that their love matters. Until the next story, my dear ones.